So, Whitney, Wiggity Whitney, for people who don't know you,
What?
who are you? What's your role? And where do you work?
Who am I? My name is Whitney Lee. I work as a senior technical advocate at Datadog.
Yeah, I think a
That's
lot
how
of
that
people out
answers all your
there,
questions, right? Yeah.
I think a lot of people out there are saying, when I grew up, I want to be like Whitney.
It is a really cool job. It's a fun and cool job. Yes.
How did you first get involved in Kubernetes? Because I know a bit about your career path, the things that you did in the past. I'll be interested to see how those things overlap. But take me back, in your life before Kubernetes, the stuff that you were doing, and then how you ended up getting into the space.
I am a career changer. So I spent most of my adult career as a wedding photographer for more than 10 years. I owned a wedding photography business. I had photographers who worked for me. I personally have photographed like 500 weddings. It's too many. Too many. I have no interest in ever attending a wedding ever again. If I fall off your invite list, I don't mind. You don't want my jaded self there anyway. I'll be judging everything harshly. No, I'm kidding.
This is not going to work. This is not going to. If you think the wedding is expensive, wait till you get to the divorce. That's what the price tag is.
I'm mostly kidding. I have a very kind mind. If I attended someone's wedding, I would look for the good in it.
The food.
But so I really hated my wedding photography job by the time I was over. It was very circular. I didn't feel like I was learning and growing. I had the process down like perfectly. And I always felt buried in work, either buried in editing work or buried in trying to catch up on emails and communication and admin stuff. And my brother, he's a musician, and his band Mutual Benefit got some big success in 2014, got on like Rolling Stone's top 50 albums of the year, that sort of thing. And he needed to put together a live band to tour. And he asked me to join the band. And I was like, oh, hell yes. That's what I needed to get out of weddings. So I had like a third life crisis. So I spent all my savings returning couples their wedding deposit money. I dissolved my business. My partner at the time, we'd been together 8 years. They weren't supportive. So broke up with them, put all my stuff into storage, and then went on tour for a year in 2014. What does this have to do with Kubernetes?
It has to do with a lot, because you told me your travel schedule. You told me your travel schedule before we started recording. I was like, yeah, that sounds like Whitney's permanently on tour.
Yeah. Oh, it does feel a lot like tour. And the wedding photography knowledge actually has come into play a lot too. But that's neither here nor there. Let's fast forward. I got back from tour. I didn't know what to do with my life. I worked in restaurants for a few years, and my son was in college studying computer science, computer software engineering specifically. And he's like, Mom, you would really like this. You should try this out. Hey, Mom. And so I gave it a shot. I wrote my first line of code in January 2019 as part of an online course, just to see if I would like it enough to make it into a career. And then in 2019, I did like it. I did hundreds and hundreds of hours of pre-course work. I went to a boot camp, which were 11-hour days, 6 days a week. I graduated that in October. And then by November, I had a job as a cloud developer at IBM. And the thing is, the whole year I spent completely dedicated to learning how to code. That was all spent toward full stack web development. That was all MERN stack. And then I just got a job as a cloud developer. I had no idea what I didn't know. And I'm so glad I didn't know what I was getting into, because I might not have had the bravery to go through with it. So to answer your question about Kubernetes, the first time I learned about Kubernetes was when I was prepping for the job interview for IBM. So I was looking at IBM specific Kubernetes resources, and I saw a Lightboard video by Cy Venom. That's What is Kubernetes? And that was my very first exposure to Kubernetes, which is wild to think about now, because now Cy is a friend, and I've made some IBM Cloud Lightboard videos too.
Yeah, the Lightboard connection, I hadn't made that. And also, it was interesting. I interviewed Cy last week. So it'd be good. Next time I see him, I'm connecting the dots there too. But actually, I would like to circle back on the stuff that you learned, the skills that you acquired as a wedding photographer, and how that has helped you later on. But we'll get to that. I'll try to make a mental note so we can plug that in later, because I really do believe that these experiences are relevant and shouldn't be overlooked.
Oh yeah, there's a book I love called Range: The Universal Truths. Range: How Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World is the subtitle, and that really helped cure my imposter syndrome and feel like, yeah, all that past experience, all the restaurant serving, the musician stuff, the wedding photography, it's all relevant, and it's all helped me become who I am today.
Absolutely. Definitely agree. Good. Now, we happen to work in an ecosystem that moves very quickly. We're both in the content creation space, but which in a way helps us keep up with the things that are going on, because we talk to people all the time that are doing really cool things. But how do you personally stay up to date with all the different things that are happening in the Kubernetes ecosystem?
Here's how I do it. Here's the big secret. I don't. I just accept it's not possible to know everything. Whatever I'm focused on right now, whatever I'm making a resource on right now, I learn everything about that. I make sure I'm totally current on that. And then some of my older knowledge, it falls away. But when I need it again, when it comes back up, then I'll find what's current about it at that time. But I think it's actually, it's a fallacy to think that any one person can stay on top of everything. And sometimes when you try to, you lose focus of being able to go deep on one thing.
Good point. That being said, are you going to go to the ambassadors meeting in 34 minutes?
No, actually, I have meetings. I can't.
You're not going to go to church.
I will 100% watch the recording and read the slides. Yeah, but
okay, good. Yeah. Anyway, that's fine. I'm just curious because I didn't think about staying up to date.
I really do go to the resources I want when I want them, instead of being open to things coming to me when it happens to come to me, because I'm usually not ready for that thing at that time. So I don't really attend other people's conference talks. I might watch them later when I become interested in that thing. But yeah.
Yeah. In terms of KubeCon talks, I don't know how many KubeCons I've been to and how many talks I've seen, but maybe I see one talk on average, and it's a friend or it's the talk before the talk that I happen to be giving. It's because I just don't have enough time, and they're all on YouTube, as you said. Good. Now, Kubernetes can mean different things to different people, depending on who you ask. And so, Whitney Lee, for you, what is Kubernetes?
Well, I mean, when I first learned Kubernetes, it's like, okay, it's a container orchestration platform, but it's evolved way beyond containers now. So it's an anything orchestration platform. It's a way to define the desired state of something. And it could be a container. It could be stuff running, could be infrastructure running completely outside of Kubernetes. And then Kubernetes controllers and the whole shebang is going to work to make that your desired state of whatever it is meet the actual state. How's that?
Sounds great to me. Like I said, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Everyone has a different definition. That's good.
It's that reconciliation loop, and it's the extensibility that's why the whole world has adopted it. It's like, it's so flexible, but then it has some really good core standards that we can all get behind too.
Now, digging in more, with your experience, you've built a reputation by teaching Kubernetes to thousands on a lightboard, as we see right behind you. Yeah. But what made you decide on the educator path? Once again, we get into the varied sort of career, different movements and experiences that you've had. Had you had prior experience teaching, public speaking? I guess in a way working in restaurants. I guess also in a way too doing weddings. Like you have to be speaking in front of people, interacting, getting to engage with them. So in a way you're always building an audience. But what made you decide, this is going to be for me in terms of DevRel and content creation?
I got a job as a cloud developer at IBM, and specifically I was doing pre-sales. So we would go to client sites and build out proof of concepts that weren't even specific to their environment, just specific to IBM tools. And they hired a big onboard, a lot of us at once, and didn't necessarily keep us all busy at the same time. So I was looking for stretched projects, like just a way to grow my skills and still provide value to IBM and cure my imposter syndrome maybe a little bit too. And there was a call for SMEs on the Austin specific IBM workspace in Slack. And the first thing I did when I saw that post was to Google what is an SME. And then once I did, it's like, oh, okay, there's no world where I'm a subject matter expert for the IBM Cloud YouTube channel, but I do have experience as a performer. My degree is in fine arts, and that's like representing tech visually. I have a lot of experience communicating as part of the wedding photography job. So maybe if they just need a performer, like I can do that. So I filled out some Google form and sent it out into the world. And then they got back to me and they were like, yes, it's you. You're going to be a rock star. And I'm just like looking behind me, like I've been here like 6 months. I've known what Kubernetes is for like 6 months. But they convinced me. And now I'm a believer too, that having that beginner's mind is a gift and really will help your video resonate with even more and more people. So I did end up making the content. It was not a situation where I was just a performer. I did make the content and I did make videos, and I ended up making 7 different videos for the IBM Cloud YouTube channel. And together they have a couple million views, I think. And so that's how it got started. And then as I did more and more things at IBM, I got moved into customer success. I started to realize that making the videos was my favorite part of the role. Or even as a customer success person, I found myself helping to put together OpenShift enablement labs and teaching my teammates how to do something. So I think I just enjoyed learning. Part of helping learning click for me was thinking, how am I going to reframe this to teach it to someone else? Even when I learn something that isn't going to be public content, I still am reframing it in a way as though it is going to be, often as in a teaching perspective. Yeah.
And I think that this directly relates to the next question. You already talked about the point as well too, of having a beginner's mind, but how do you turn technical learning into content that connects with beginners?
Well, by being aware of what knowledge is assumed. So don't use acronyms, or do use acronyms, but spell them out. Even some like SOPs stands for secrets operations. No one ever calls it secrets operations, but I'm such a detailed and literal and thorough thinker personally that if someone says SOPs and I don't know what they mean, then my listening stops there and I start wondering what the acronym is. Anyway, so it's not like you can't have any assumed knowledge, but be deliberate with what that assumed knowledge is. Be deliberate with who you're talking to, and know what technical level you're speaking to when you're speaking to that technical level. And I like to talk about my own vulnerability and my own journey as part of teaching. Like, oh, when I learned this, I found this part of it hard. Or when I learned this, I got tripped up on this. So now when I'm explaining it to someone else, I'm going to take extra time and care to explain that particular thing.
And do you ever talk about SMEs?
I'm afraid I might actually say SMEs now sometimes without explaining the acronym.
Okay. In my case with some of these things, because I've learned them as an adult in Spanish and then trying to figure out, okay, I can't say that, and what am I going to say in English? But I remember when I got started in the Data on Kubernetes community and being told, my instructions were, you need to go out and find end users who are running stateful workloads on Kubernetes. And I'm like, can I buy a vowel? I have no idea. And here I had been working in tech more or less for like 3.5 years. But on the talent management side, event organization, putting together meetups and things like that. And so when I was faced with that and hearing about, loosely coupled container attached storage, I was like, I'm a native English speaker. My vocabulary is pretty good. You might as well be speaking Chinese. I have no idea what's going on here. I think it's really important to unpack.
Yeah, and it's 100% its own language. Tech jargon, 100% its own language. And another thing I've learned is when I was first starting and I was exposed to people saying a lot of that tech jargon, I just felt like I know nothing. And now that I know more and more and more, and I can speak the tech, I'm fluent maybe in tech jargon, I see that there are plenty of instances that someone's saying a lot of tech jargon words and it doesn't mean anything. They're just saying the words. Like it's all very hand wavy. So looking back on some of those experiences I had where I thought I was the one who didn't know anything, I now know that sometimes people use tech jargon as a way to cover up what they don't know, the gaps in their knowledge too. So if you don't understand someone, it might not be you, it might be them. And you know what else I need to say to you, Bart? I have a thing I realized. I think we've been talking about SMEs and we never said the acronym. After I'm such a hypocrite. After I was saying, be sure you always say the acronym, I'm pretty sure I talked about SMEs and didn't say the acronym. So the acronym is subject matter expert, and I'll try to do better. Yeah.
Yeah, it could also be small and medium enterprise. That's the other problem.
And, another difficulty.
That was my assumption when I first heard it. I was like, why is there so much emphasis on small and medium enterprises? Doesn't make any sense. Yep, good. Oh, I hear you on that. Cool.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of the challenges, the difficulties that younger contributors or educators face in terms of being taken seriously out there, you mentioned imposter syndrome already. Along with that, you can talk about that, of course. Are there any additional ones that you'd like to mention, and why?
And difficulties. So I think, my advice is make content you're curious about. Don't worry about what's going to get the most views or who's going to find value in it. If you find value in it, then chances are someone else is going to find value too. And if you find value in it and you make it, your voice is more genuine. If 0 people watch it, you at least can walk away and be like, well, even though no one watched it, I learned this from making it. And that has helped me grow. So it's never wasted time, even if no one sees it. I think that's my advice. Make what you want to make. Make stuff that resonates for you.
I think it's sound advice. I think, like you said, people might fall into the trap of thinking, what's going to give me the highest, number of likes, engagement, clicks, things like that. And, sometimes as a content creator, when you are going for awareness and visibility, you might be thinking, wow, if I'm lucky enough, if I get this person on, it is going to boost my appearance, my image, my credibility, my reputation. But I would also generally agree that the more motivated you are about the things you're recording, the more you're going to retain, the more you're going to enjoy it. And yeah, so I think it's a good thing to keep in mind.
And if you're obsessed with boosting your reputation, people who are watching your content, they see that and it doesn't feel genuine. It's not something they're excited to watch. If you're there because you're excited about the technology you're talking about and maybe excited about your guest, then that feels different to the viewer too.
I would definitely agree with that. It doesn't take much, or it certainly shouldn't take much to know when it's not genuine. I'm definitely a believer in that. Good. Now, in terms of your own opportunities, as you're speaking all over the place, you're doing all this really cool stuff, keynoting all these different places, traveling to conferences. How is sharing knowledge online through the videos that you create, or things that you've done on YouTube, workshops, etc.? How is that impacted your ability to be invited to the places that you go to do the work that you're doing right now?
How has sharing videos online helped me get invited to do more things? So because I learn out loud, so I do a long format show called Enlightening, where I'll invite an SME, subject matter expert, to come on and teach me about something that I know nothing about. So I start with I'm very vulnerable. And I learn on the fly during this 2-hour stream. It's a live stream too. So sometimes I may say very silly things, but I don't mind being corrected. And so through that, I've shown the core of my personality and the core of my ability to learn to the world, for better or worse. There are hundreds and hundreds of hours of content of me learning out loud. So when the opportunity comes for me to get a cool job or to speak somewhere or to get invited to keynote, people know who I am. There's no doubt that I'm over and over again. There's proof that I've been vulnerable. I've been kind. I've delivered on what I promised to do. I've made quality content. So it removes any doubt from anyone's mind when they think about perhaps inviting me. Another thing is, part of my first learning to everything really was to involve experts in my learning process. And so through that Enlightening show, I also met maintainers of many 50 or 100 different CNCF projects and have made a lot of friends in the community. So that also helps me get invited to places.
Very good. I think that too, with making friends in the community, networking, for some people it's easier than others. I
Mm-hmm.
would say that both of us naturally are, pretty extrovert, easy to get along with. We enjoy meeting new people. It's something that I don't find to be a significant challenge. But for some people, it's not so easy. Any advice that you would give for people about how to, broaden their connections in the community, get to know more people?
I have to say, I'm not an extrovert. I'm an
Well, you're a
introvert for
very good
sure.
fake. You're a very good faker.
I've literally, I was very, very shy growing up, and I even up until maybe 7 years ago, and I've read a lot of books about how to be social, and so it's all learned knowledge. Now it's second nature, and now it's easy for me, but it took some work, some inner
But
work,
but performing but
and
performing in a band, touring, being a wedding photographer.
performing's different, and performing's different because I have a script or whatever. Like the first, it was really hard for me to go from like the lightboard videos that I curated and I could practice and I knew exactly what I was going to say into doing the live streams or and I did some other content in between that is buried now, and it's good that way. But it was like the first live stream, I was way more nervous than I was for the lightboard stuff. That was the IBM Cloud lightboard stuff that was practiced. But now I feel comfortable learning out loud because I have some core values in place. Like I never pretend to know something that I don't know. And like I'm quick to admit that I'm wrong. Like I realized we didn't say what the SME acronym is. And I just own it like, oh yeah, I messed that up. I'm sorry. We could do better and move on. And that has served me well because as long as I feel like I'm being genuine, I feel like I can be big and loud and proud of who I am. But as soon as I tell a lie or I'm trying to cover up a gap in knowledge, then that makes me feel scared. It brings a whole different mindset. I say that I never would tell a lie or pretend I know something I don't know, but it's how I feel great. And even when I was first speaking at conferences, I was like, the question and answer part was the scariest part because again, that's not practice. I don't know what people are going to ask me. And then pretty soon I learned, oh, I could just say I don't know and I don't know. And even better yet, I'll say I don't know the answer to that, but if you get in touch with me on LinkedIn or whatever, I'll find the answer for you. I know who to ask. So I'll help you, but just not in this moment. Whatever you're asking is outside of my realm of expertise.
I think it's a really good point too, and it's interesting because regarding feeling trapped and that you feel like you have to give an answer if someone asks a question, where you just say I don't know and I'll look into it and I'd love to continue the conversation with you once I find out,
Yeah.
which is a perfectly appropriate answer. And because of speaking about imposter syndrome, a lot of times we focus on folks that might be new in the ecosystem, and it's something that I suffered a lot from coming from a very non-technical background. But a lot of what I've read is that the higher up you go in terms of someone's position, actually the worse the imposter syndrome can get because you're expected to know even more. And
Yeah.
the idea of, and you said, to stay on top of everything in Kubernetes is impossible. Chris Anishek, the CTO of the CNCF, says he's not familiar with all the projects that are in the sandbox. How could you possibly, have the level of familiarity? And so I think that, or when someone says a Kubernetes expert, what does that mean? It's so vast to really be like, I can do absolutely everything that's necessary here. Joe Beta, Tim Hawken, Kubernetes OGs, Brendan Burns, Lackey, maybe these are some of the people we're supposed to be referencing, Kelsey Hightower, et cetera. But I think even they would probably have the humility to say, no, I don't know absolutely everything. And it's just not possible. So I think there's a lot, whether it's in this ecosystem or any other, the older I get, like vulnerability is really cool. And being able to say like, these are my shortcomings and my limitations, because everybody has them. The older you get, that everybody has them. Everybody does. And so I think the quicker you own that and say, well, I can't do that, or I don't know the answer to that. I do know these things on the other hand, or I know other people who know the things that I don't, and I'd be happy to put you in touch with them. And that's it.
Yeah. I know this tangential thing and I can infer this, but I'm not 100% sure. I'll look into it. I love actually that you just highlighted a gap in my knowledge because now we can learn the answer to this together. Like another big shift in mindset. I was grown up, like I was raised to think that people who are doing the same thing I am doing are my competition. Like I need to be the best one. I need to be top chair in the marching band or whatever. I think it's orchestra, whatever. I need to be the best. And that mindset does not serve you well here. Like you're surrounded with a ton of people who are all very smart, and it's great. It's amazing. It's a gift. And if you reframe it as a gift and not as a I don't belong, it's really powerful to see everyone around you as your community who you lift up and they lift you up. and not as your competition.
I really agree. And it does make me sad occasionally of hearing some of like the tit for tat stuff between companies. And it's like, you're saying these things today and you're going to be working in the same company tomorrow. It's pretty silly. And what's one storage provider to another? Is it really that important? Like, I don't know. But I definitely agree to look at it from a position of abundance, and that we're very fortunate to work in an ecosystem where there are so many smart people and so many cool people from all over the world, and you get to learn so much about different countries. That's one of the things that I really like is having, contact with people from so many different places. I got to go to Guatemala earlier this year for KCD Antigua. There, it was fantastic. We'll hopefully be able to go back. I mean, it's kind of like the gift that keeps on giving if you treat it well. So I think there's a lot to be said for that. Now, in terms of, folks that are out there, I'm sure you've mentored people, you've spoken to people that are new in the ecosystem. What advice do you give to newcomers who want to build a story around teaching while learning in a similar way to how you do it? I mean, everybody needs to do it in their own way, but when someone says, Whitney, I really like the stuff that you're doing, but I don't know where to get started or how to do it, what are the kinds of things that you often share with people in that position?
What can I say that I haven't already said before about starting with something that genuinely...
Say it again and put it in an acronym.
Start with something that genuinely resonates with you. Follow your curiosity. That's going to be contagious. Don't focus on your reputation or getting likes or followers. Focus on making a genuine voice for yourself. Focus on lifting up another community. If you're learning about a CNCF project, maybe see if someone from that project wants to get involved and help you make a resource together. A collaboration is valuable, and a lot of projects, we always hear about they need contributors. Well, one way to contribute is by making content for that project. So if you go into CNCF Slack and you go to the Argo CD and you say, hey, I want to make a blog post for you. I want to do this. I'm here to create content. I have this going for me. They might be really receptive. Argo CD is maybe not the best example because it's such a huge project, but those sandbox projects especially are going to welcome you with open arms, and you'll have someone to collaborate with, someone to review your content, so you have confidence that you're saying all the right things, and just a team around you.
I think it's very sound advice. One thing I want to double down on here too, because this came up in an interview I did recently with someone else who'd be in this series we're doing with Heroku, but he's quite young, but he's a core contributor in the Harbor project. And so he was saying that, he's mentored people now in the LFX mentorship program, and he himself was a mentee in the past, but saying that something that a lot of newcomers might suffer from is expecting to learn everything in a week or be able to, I'm going to start doing, code contributions to a major open source project that's backed by a super cool company in record time. And then they get disappointed and frustrated or hard on themselves that they haven't learned all this crazy jargon in a week's time. And so when it comes to the time frame around, and there's no, you can't say it takes 3 months or it takes 6 months or anything like that. But, Rome was not built in a day. When it comes to having patience and letting the experience breathe, what would you say about that?
Oh, 100. There's still plenty of stuff I don't know. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I will say too, that when I was learning Kubernetes, I used a spaced repetition learning tool called Anki, and I made flashcards. And that was part of how I learned the jargon and was able to be more confident about saying all the right words more quickly. And it was actually at that very moment that I was transitioning from having done rehearsed videos into doing live streams. I didn't want, when talking about Kubernetes, I didn't want some concept to come up that I'd never even heard of. Like, I at least wanted to have some frame of reference for what it is. And so I made flashcards of the whole Kubernetes glossary so that I would feel more confident as a live streamer. But I do think, first of all, you're only going to learn what naturally comes up unless you make extra efforts to learn outside of the scope of that. And so that extra effort could just be like, okay, this naturally comes up, and now I'm going to push a little farther on what I'm naturally doing just to get more context. Or it could be something like I was doing where it's just like, oh, over here, I'm just going to make some flashcards and just make sure I'm learning all the time, regardless of whether I know whether it's in the right direction. I've learned sometimes I make flashcards around like low level, how a container works, or about DNS, or about, I made some about, there's the hacker rules is a GitHub repository. I'll share it later. And I made flashcards around that have been, I didn't know how they'd be useful when I made them. I just thought this is fun and interesting. I want to remember this for a long time. And then making those flashcards has really served me well. So is flashcards around the 12-factor app. That was helpful too. So anyway, sometimes you don't know why you're learning something. You're just curious and you learn, but then later you figure out it's relevant to more things than you know.
And we've talked about the site of resources, but there's actually a question that we skipped over. Who in the Kubernetes community helped you level up? Tell me about the people that were instrumental in your journey.
Well, besides the 100 or so people I interviewed for Enlightening, so like everybody, there are a couple. One is, so pretty soon after I gave my first conference talk in April of 2022. And then in, I believe, October of 2022, I had a keynote at KubeCon on the main stage. And big shout out to Mauricio Salatino, aka Salaboy, for he was my co-speaker for that. He was my co-speaker for that, and he had to deal with all of my imposter syndrome and all of my forcing him to slow down and not use jargon and really spell things out so we could speak to things, do our talk in a way that it felt genuine to me too, which meant him as a super expert had to slow down. But then I think it made for a really engaging talk. We got a lot of positive feedback because I made him dumb it down for me to understand it. Therefore, we could both understand it. And that, I don't want to undersell my piece of that. I really did have a lot to do with the storytelling and figuring out which parts are important and such, and drawing the slides. So big shout out to Mauricio. And then the other person is Victor Farchich, who's my bestie in the space. He and I make a show together called You Choose, and our relationship in terms of mentee isn't, it's more like I have a bunch of questions, and and once I have a question about anything, he's someone I just know I can ping and be like, hey, what's this about? What do you think of here? Like, someone told me this, but it doesn't feel right. Like, what's your take on it? So he's just someone who's always available at the other end of a video call. And just in general, we have wonderful talks when we are at conferences together. Love that guy.
I definitely love that guy too. And Victor, I expect to see you in a kilt very soon, no matter where it is. I don't know if that's going to be a permanent KubeCon fixture. Shout out to Chris Plank also for getting him the kilt. But
he really liked that kilt.
He did. He made it look good. He definitely did. And so, yeah, Victor is definitely high up there. Well, Whitney, you've got a lot of things going on. This will, these interviews will be shared after KubeCon. So if we want to be thinking about the end of 2025 and looking towards 2026, what's going to be next for you?
Oh, well, I've been messing around a lot in the Gen AI space, or the AI assisted coding space, like a lot of people, I suppose. So I expect to see some talks and content from me around that. And then, of course, I have a new to me job at Datadog. So I've been at Datadog about 7 months. So I'll probably also be talking some about observability too. But I do totally intend to keep up interviewing and talking with folks in the CNCF community too, and keep up my community work and my community shows.
And if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
LinkedIn, I think. Or I'm Wiggity Whitney on most of the places. All the places, I think. Yeah. If
we find another Wiggity Whitney, we'll get a lawyer in for copyright infringement.
Yeah.
Cool. Whitney, thanks again. This is amazing talking to you, and I look forward to seeing you very soon.
Yeah, I'm excited to see you too. Thank you for having me.